Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Adam Steele from Hot Post Studios here, which is what I say every time we stream. Hope you're all doing well. As you can see, things are starting to come together a little more behind me. I've now got the lights back on and working. I actually had to get a 60 watt power supply for all those now, so it didn't get worryingly hot to the touch. So hopefully that's now cured another potential hazard. As of last week, we had finished 2 songs in that stream. One called We Carry On, and one called, what was the other one? I think it was called Everything. Yeah, that's right. So the first thing we're going to do this week is listen through those 2 tracks, make sure everything's right, see if there are any small changes need to be made now we've had some space from it. And then we're going to move on. We've got 2 new songs to work on. I even have the album track listing and order now, so it's got more of an explanation of what goes where, which is fascinating. So without further ado, let's move on to the intro and then move on to listening through things. All right, so here we are again in Reaper as we are every week. Let's have a listen through this song, We Carry On. Let's make sure you can hear this, and off we go. We'll just listen through, see if anything stands out. I'm going to use a different headphone emulation to normal. Oh, Gianluca has been without any electricity. That sucks. Right, I'm going to listen to this in the SUV just because apparently there's a 2.0 version of this coming out very soon, and that's going to have more rooms and more features. I'm very much looking forward to that, but the exact date of that has not been announced yet, so that's just kind of a as and when. So let's listen through We Carry On with that on in my headphones. I might change this, but you won't hear a change. Here we go. Yeah, that's sounding really good. All I changed there is I noticed the vocal seemed a little too loud and the main vocal was a little bit too toppy, which I just backed off the top there, but not by huge amounts. There's something I'm hearing in the kind of the piercing mid-range at the end on the whole chorus vocal, which I'll just look at Soothe again while we play that. Cool, so for that, I'll just add some more high air to that fresh air, and I'll take a bit more top end off the verse vocal, and that might just do it, actually. Let's just see. Some of these have quite piercing kind of top. Yeah, the slate saturation stuff, I tend to mix as and when on every particular channel. I'm going to move my headphone space back to my kind of known space, which is the Archon midfield, because that's where I virtually at least tend to do my work. But everything on the SUV sounded great, so let's just play these back now with a bit more of that fresh air and a bit less console top end boost.
While the dark goes cold, we carry on, carry on.
Yeah, that's better, and I'll just check again at the start a bit.
You can hold my soul, bend the light in time, together, riding one side as the sirens sing.
Yeah.
A power to
Okay, so I'm going to take the vocal group down by maybe a dB or two, just until we get loads more instruments, so it doesn't just hit you and become too loud. So it'll just rise a little with the track, and then from there, I think the arrangement takes care of the rest. But if it doesn't, we'll look at that. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
my soul, bend the light in time, a power to move on now and forever as the sirens sing. I'm anchored by your side, moving to a melody all together.
Yeah, that sounds great. That just builds at that point there. There we go. I was just telling the guys from SkyeAsylum that we are live. So I'll hit save on that. Fresh air could be the car simulator. Are you late? We've been live for 10 minutes, so no, not particularly late. We've started by listening through one of the songs from the previous session, and we're going to do that again with the song Everything, and just listen through, see if anything stands out as being not right, anything small changes need doing. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I'm making the mix tweaks to this is taking a while to load just because it's got a lot of channels going on. Yeah, so this is just a check through, and then we'll move on to Kingdom, I think is the song. Yeah, live mixing, it's like one hand tied behind your back. Yeah, and I usually have a drink in my hand while I do it, but not today. I look like a bit of a mess because I've just got out of the shower. It's hanging on slate trigger. Oh dear. That could be my fault because I set up trigger. Oh boy. Let's just copy these into there. Might be that I need to close this down and try opening it a second time, which would be entirely my fault. Let's just see. Yeah, I opened this project up in Studio A just to listen to it and play around with it a little bit, and Trigger hadn't been set up properly in Studio A because I don't tend to use it so much when I don't use it at all when I'm tracking. I use it when I'm I use it when I'm mixing, which means that the tracking machine, I've never actually pulled it up. Yeah, it is lots of plugins. You usually would see the Reaper loading screen in the middle here is loading up lots of plugins. It's taking a long time on Trigger too. I might have to open Trigger separately. Mike, hello Mike. Mike's making fresh coffee. Good stuff. Right, here's a plan. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the Slate Audio Center because it might be that Trigger's out of date on this computer. So I'm just going to go to the camera while I do that. Yes, Trigger's out of date. Trigger install. There we go. Yeah, so there we go. There we go. It's not giving you any my personal details now. That's good. Just getting it to download the newer Trigger 2 version, which has some updated stuff. That's what I did at the other studio, and that seemed to fix a lot of things. I don't know if they've actually changed much, but I know there's a new Trigger 2 instrument editor, and I know they're working on a new version of Trigger to come out God knows when. Seems to be downloading strangely slowly. Considering I'm on a 500 megabit line and with power line Ethernet that can do at least 10 megabytes a second. That should be going way faster, and especially when it comes to the samples, we might have to be chatting for a little while. Oh boy, yeah, at this rate, that's going to be 3 megabytes a second. That's going to take a few minutes. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions for me, I may as well tell you about my week. It's been a busy week. If you're watching this on VOD, I do apologize. Just skip ahead. What boom arm am I using? That is a Rode PSA 1. I originally had one of the cheaper Niwa ones in here, but the springs on those kind of creak. I do have two of the Niwa arms holding up the lights which are on, but I don't move those around like I move this one around. And so the squeaking springs were transmitting through the microphone. So I saved up and ponied up and bought a PSA 1. It's 2 gigs. Yes, it is. It's 2 gigabytes of trigger file. I mean, we're already 10% in, so, you know, patience is rewarded. As you can see, it's going at 3 to 4 megabytes a second, so it's not exactly going to take all day. Do I use tom samples? Not often. It depends. It depends if the tom sounds from the original drum kit are terrible. I tend to use kit kick and snare samples most of the time because, especially in a lot of genres, I use them as kind of reinforcement, and there are certain things that samples can do that real drums cannot do because samples have a complete lack of bleed on them. So I know a lot of producers say, oh, if you can't mix without samples, you can't mix at all. I said, no. If the drum kit was recorded perfectly, maybe. And even then it's a maybe, because you don't know what I'm trying to do to get a sound I'm after. Like, the other thing is, like, it depends on the way that the kit was recorded. This project is a good example where the snare is quite high tuned. I think it's a bell brass snare, so it's got a real crack, which in the overheads in the rooms really comes through. But I'm reinforcing it with a snare sample that's quite roomy, quite low, and has a real kind of thing to it, which that low, extended, sustained thing is really difficult to capture in a performance with cymbals ringing. And so being able to add that in subtly underneath the real snare, which has all the rolls, all the dynamics, all the performance, gives me a massive sound that is physically impossible. And you say, oh, you can just EQ it in on the snare. No, a high-tuned snare does not have the frequencies of a low-tuned snare in it, full stop. So there you go. And also with kicks. Kicks very much depend on the artist, but 99 times out of 100, I want a ridiculously clicky, punchy sample to go underneath the real kick, which, again, most kick drums have much more body and weight and kind of boomf to them on the microphones than a sample can possibly have. And if you start overly scooping EQ out on something like a kick drum, live, no one's going to care. But in the studio, things like high-end cymbal wash that's on like the outside kick mics, even if you gate it, if you're extremely, being extreme with the EQ, those peaks from the cymbals, even though they're quite a way away, are going to cut in. And when you hit the kick drum, you get a psh, 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 psh on the top from the cymbals, which sounds awful. So why not have the ideal perfect kick, or even actually beyond ideal? And yeah, if it's beyond ideal, then you can add it into the real. Gated sine wave triggered under kicks. I'm not a big fan of that one because it's kind of devoid of character. If the kick you have sounds good, but is missing that low end gut punch, then yeah, of course. But again, a lot of this is genre dependent. If I'm mixing for something more like kind of American alternative rock, garage rock quite often will have a more tightly tuned, quite kind of punchy snare, but no click at all. It's more of a bop than a kind of metal thing. That type of genre doesn't work with samples generally because you want to feel an organic kind of recorded straight to tape kind of feel. Do you ever use reinsert for correct levels in Reaper for hardware send and or external routing? Or do you have to use reinsert? No, you don't have to use reinsert, but I highly recommend it because if you use reinsert as a plugin, not only can you level match everything properly on a channel when you're using external effects, but you can delay compensate, which means that it sends a little blip through the effect, waits for it to come back, and then once that's recorded in, that will adjust everything as if it was a plugin that had additional latency so that everything lines up perfectly. Oh yeah, no, when you say it's a hip-hop thing, no, I get it, absolutely. You'd be surprised. A lot of new metal used things like sine waves under kicks, not necessarily under every kick though. If you listen to My Generation by Limp Bizkit with a sub on your system, you'll hear that every key kick, because the kicks on that are very busy, so it goes bum 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 bum. the first one of the bar has a sub going bong, 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 bong. Very hip-hop-esque, very hip-hop influenced. And yeah, so it's not that unusual. It's just, especially in metal where there's a lot of kicks going on, it's very unusual to have it on every single kick. I know that Linkin Park did that a few times. Linkin Park did a lot of sample reinforcement on the drums. If you listen to the album Hybrid Theory, a lot of the time, if you listen to the snare sounds like someone is kind of hitting heavy machinery with a kind of a jang, jang that sounds nothing like a snare but has been blended into the snare to give it a really unique character. That's a good example of sample reinforcement doing something other than trying to make drums sound like better drums. But yeah. See, this is downloading pretty quickly. It's more than 2/3 done already. Disregard this percentage, it'll be downloaded and it'll just go. Yeah, if you try it on a pattern of lots of kicks, it gets in the way of the bass. Very true. I'm going to close that door. Poor Ivy's trying to sleep while I'm nattering away in the background. Come on, seat. There we go. Damn you, Herman Miller. Okay, there we go. Well, while that's loading, I'll show you something. I'll load up Premiere. This might cause things to chug a little. Hopefully not. But this is the Celestian video that I've been working on. For the last 3 solid days, pretty much, I have been doing a lot of the editing and getting a lot of the audio together on the video, and oh my word, it's going to be a doozy. Anyone on our Discord, I kind of gave out a Mark 1 version of the audio samples, which is missing a bit, and there's some imperfections in there, which I've been over with a fine tooth comb now. But yeah, when I mix overheads, I can't get the harshness sound out. Any recommendations to fix that? Don't use harsh cymbals. Don't use overly bright and present peaky microphones. That's actually a massive sin that a lot of guys do. They'll have overhead mics quite close to cymbals, that things like large diaphragm condensers that have these big presence peaks in. So don't do that. After that, there's a good chance your overheads are too loud, or that you've got too much high end in them. Just try a high pass filter down to about 10k. Try that, because that might solve some of your problems. Not too steep a filter though, just something that's gentle, just to roll the top off. When you say harsh, I mean, you could be talking about 10k, you could be talking about 4k or even 2k. You have to go through the EQ with a fine tooth comb and find what doesn't work for you and take it out. But yeah, alright, so this is going to take forever to load, so I can't really show you the whole thing. But yeah, that, if you know anything about Premiere, that's the just the playthroughs, and that goes from the 2.5 hour mark to the 6 hour mark. And this section from 0 to the almost 2.5 hour mark is the unedited bit where it's just me talking to the camera for over 2 hours. And that's not including titles, that's not including extra audio comparisons that are going to go into these sections. So that video is going to be absolutely insane. As you can see, it's still loading. It's still loading because, actually, yeah, subtractive EQ is always the way, going back to the previous question. It's still loading because it's got loads of graphics here, which are all through After Effects. So it's actually loading up a background copy of After Effects to get these all loaded up. What I'm doing on the other screen is I'm going into my VST plugins folder, which I would show you what I'm doing, but there are probably plugins in there that I can't show you yet because I'm under NDA. And I'm looking for trigger. There you are, trigger 2. I'm just gonna cut that out of here and put it somewhere else. Ooh. No, I'm gonna leave it there for now, because I think that is the right version. There isn't a Steinberg. Oh, there's a Steinberg folder. What's gone in there? That's why all the Sonox stuff didn't come up, because all the Sonox stuff went to the Steinberg VST plugins folder. Oh boy. I'm just going to check in the x86. Nope, we're good. Okay, so it looks like the Trigger 2 plugin should be the right one. That's still loading, but in the background... Oh, successfully installed. Well, never mind. I'll show you the Premiere project another time. That is now how long it takes to load. I genuinely now load up that Premiere project, then go and make a coffee while it loads because it takes so long. Rendering that out is going to be hell. But yeah, now that that's done, back to products, make sure we're all set. I may as well, I do need the David Bendeth stuff actually. How big is this going to be? Please tell me this is smaller. Much smaller, that's good. Still going to take a few minutes. Apologies everybody that this is taking so long on the stream. If you're watching this on VOD, I guess you would have skipped past all this by now. But these are the kind of technical issues that happen when you're not checking everything on a regular basis. But yeah, unfortunately for me, yeah, these projects do have the David Bendeth snares. So on the other screen, I'm just going to look in trigger to library. Yeah, okay, so for some reason I'm now doubling up on a lot of this stuff, but that's fine. What's in here that I need? There we go, that's how long it took just to quit Premiere. Trigger to library, boom. Stick the drum shot stuff in there from JST, and yeah. Always wondered why some plugins default to the Steinberg folder. I'll tell you why. Steinberg are the people who make Cubase. They're also the people who literally invented the VST. VST is a Steinberg file format. So back in the day, you could only use VSTs in Cubase because VST was the Steinberg, therefore the Cubase standard. So all the plugins would default to installing in the Steinberg VST plugins, because then in the Steinberg folder would also be Cubase separately. And then over time, more and more DAWs could use VSTs. So a lot of it just kind of defaulted to there. I personally have stopped using the old Steinberg folder, but a lot of the defaults still default there because of tradition. So yeah, now you learned something really sad. The modern VST 2 standard, which is the regular VST, is actually VST 2.4. I'm so old, I was using VST before 2.4 was a thing, when it was back to 2.2 and 2.3. Don't know what the difference was, but they settled on 2.4 and didn't do anything new then until VST 3 came out, which was a whole lot of pain and suffering for everybody for years. But now that seems to generally be the accepted standard, which is much better. So hopefully we're nearly there with this now. 200 meg off. Yeah. Sorry for this hold up, everybody. Any more questions? Because we've got a couple of minutes for me to answer probably one more good question before we crack on. Let's just have a look through the chat, see if there was any other questions. Did notice Mike talking about coffee earlier. I've got far too much coffee in here. I ordered a coffee subscription for the year. There's a local roastery in the town where I live in Blackburn, and I arranged it so that every month they send me 4 bags of coffee, so 1 a week. And yeah, it turns out that was a little bit more than I needed. We go through probably 3 bags of coffee a month, but it means I get all sorts of crazy stuff. Today I was drinking one, I think it was called Queen Congo. I don't know. Ben says he remembers the old Cubase on Atari. Yeah, that's right. At our school we had that on an Atari ST. Daniel says, are you far from John? By John, I'm guessing you mean John Brown. We live about an hour's drive away from each other. So whilst it's not round the corner, it's not an unreasonable journey. I've not seen him in nearly 2 weeks. It's the longest we've gone without seeing each other in a long time. But yeah, well, I'll be back to working with John in the next few days, and that'll be good. Putting on a t-shirt, accepted standard. What do I think of audio production or mixing schools? Most of them are out to take all of your money and not give you very much more than you can get off YouTube. That's my opinion. As someone who has a degree in music production. Right, we're done. Let's get Reaper back open. And let's just check out that Trigger works before anything. Yeah, things are so much different to when I learned. I went to university to study browser drum shots. Lovely. Right, that looks like it's working nicely. So hopefully after this horrible interlude, yeah. I mean, there are things you can learn from mixing schools that are hard to find, or at least will take you longer in the real world. But there you go. What mixing references for progressive rock do you suggest? What do you like? It's a terrible question to ask another person, what mixing references, because as you get better at mixing, you will start to realize that there are certain sounds and mixes that you like and certain sounds and mixes that you don't like. And then over time, you'll be able to explain why you like them or don't like them. But at that point, you will be the one who decides, I don't like this mix, I do like this mix. And when you say, I do like this mix, that's your reference. Because then if you know, or even if you don't know why you like it for personal reasons. It might be the amount of bass, the clarity in the top end, the right balance of guitars to vocals, whatever. There's so much subtlety to mixing that I can't tell you what's good, because your definition of good is probably different to mine, and that's okay. That's what makes us all not the just generic, homogenous. That's one of the problems in modern mixing is, but it was the problem in mixing for the last 40 years, is you get a thing of every mix sounds the same in a certain genre, apart from the odd ones that don't, and the ones that don't are the ones that last the test of time. Any new hot pole courses in the works? Not at this time. It's not out the question. That's on the kick drum. Funnily enough, when you said the Black Album was covered in samples. Black Album sample. There you go. And the snare has 2 sets of triggers. So these are all muted. So it's just... That's one, and the snare weight. So this one's actually 4 samples, which put together, that's the David Bendeth, and that's a drum shot from Billy Decker. Yeah, there we go. Mike says, I've been a ghost lately. Have you given much of an opinion on Razor editing yet? Honestly, I've been so busy, I've not even looked at the new Razor editing feature yet. I've not even watched the video on it. I know it's a thing. I've been so completely under a pile of work. Hello, Chris. That I've not even had a chance to look at Razor editing yet. So I'll let you know as soon as I've had time to look at what it is and how to play with it. Because it sounds cool, but honestly don't know. So yeah, I've been so ridiculously busy. I'm going to change this back to the car mode. Yeah, I've been bouncing between project and project and project and project recently, and this Celestian video has been kicking my ass. Like, it's seriously going to be about a 6-hour video at this point, and I've edited it all, I've shot it all, I've recorded it all, I've, kind of exported every single file, and it's absolutely bananas. If Marty's in chat, I don't know if Marty is in chat, but if he is, he'll tell you how... Oh no, Danny's in chat, I think. If Danny's in chat, maybe Danny can tell you how crazy the audio is from the Celestian project. The audio, the little 30-second clips alone, I made into a zip file and shared on the Discord. It was 3-point-something gigabytes of 30-second clips. Insane. So let's listen to the song Everything, and I'm listening on the SUV mode. This is just to listen through, see if anything weird pops out, especially with all these vocals. And we're going to turn off flatline so we don't all go deaf. Here we go. Doof doof.
Emotions come fast as I move away. I realize now there's no quick escape. The sight has no sound to show the way. I realize now why you say so. Please come take my soul.
Sorry.
Forgotten plans that comes today. I realize now why the skies were so gray. The hero is left to show the way. I realize now why you say so. Please come take my soul. And just feel as the fire burns inside.
Awesome. So I just changed a few things there to make the snare pop out a bit more heavy. I do need to look at maybe this kick trigger and add in something that's a bit more, what's the word, 100 hertzy, because I've got that and those going on, which are brutal right now. Might need something a bit less of the back road, and let's have a look, see what we've got that's a bit more, what's the word? That one, just more 100 to 200 hertz thump. I can add that in. I don't think I need to delete anything. That might be all I need, just an extra bump in the chest, you know. There we go. That should, when I unsolo this, give me just something that cuts through, not necessarily in terms of metal, because it's a slower song. I just need more of a punch. Suddenly that kick's going to stand out on every system. Now, if that's a little much, I can come back to that and just shuffle it down a little. But the difference with me turning it off, on a lot of systems, this kick's going to disappear. And now... Okay, we get the point. Thank you. Yeah, cool. So for now, I think that will settle that song. So let's move on. And actually, let's open the original project that we did, which was the Arcane. Because if this is heavy metal we're going to be working on, I'm just going to give this another quick listen and see if this matches up sound-wise. Because that's something that is important to me, is consistency amongst songs, whether we've got that or not. If not, once we get nearer to the end of the album mix, I'll probably get a pen and paper out and just make small changes across the board to make sure that everything is consistent. I mean, hopefully it shouldn't be too inconsistent. Same drum kit, roughly the same sounds. I say roughly the same sounds because now I've changed things. But with speed, I need to change certain things to make that work. So here's the Arcane. Happy Irish Day, everyone. Cheers, all. Flatline, off you go. yeah, on this song, that kick drum sounds present and punchy. I wonder if the actual dry drum tracks were punchier on this song. Anyway, let's save this as Kingdom, because that's the next song in our metal vocabulary. Now, what do we have? At least the good thing with that not opening before with Reaper is that not only was it known to be a plugin that was causing the problem, clear these envelopes, but also I was confident that I could fix that and that I resolved the problem live on stream, and it didn't take very long at all. And I actually ended up with nice new up-to-date versions of software. Never been afraid of that, which, for better or for worse. Let's just delete those tracks, because that's got... oh yeah, that's a jig 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 guitar from that particular song. Clear that envelope. -3. -5. Clear that envelope, make that -5. Ooh, we might hit an impasse today. I've just realised I've not been to the studio. So yeah, on the song Everything, the one with all the vocals, that was not the original guitars. That was reamped through my Mesa Road King over there. The guitars on the Arcane were the original guitars, the original guitar tone, which I believe was one of the Neural DSP amps. So let's just leave that at 34%. Leave that output trim at -7. Clear that envelope to be -6-ish. Let's just delete all the points out of it. That's probably easier. And overheads, leave them around -3-ish. And we've not even added in the song yet, but I do have a list. The list of song descriptions and, just as importantly, if not more so, for the song, where's Kingdom? 185. I have the tempos, which means that the tempos are going to match. Let's just drag that to an early place in the file, in the project file. Blah. Let's just make that 185 as well. That way I know everything's going to sync up. That's the hope anyway. So I'll turn Snap on and bring up OBS again in the chat. Okay, so, lots of people watching tonight. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So, Kingdom. Welcome to the Kingdom, baby. Goes the Devon Townsend. Let's get these in on the bar. Oh, up a bit, up a bit. Start it on the trigger. Separate tracks, yes, please. Probably moving them down. And again. Because, yeah, that'll be snare 1. Oh, I've been playing at 48k and I should be in 44.1k. Oops, my bad. Luckily, Reaper can completely resample everything on the fly, so that's not actually been a problem. Yeah, more people popping up in chat. Welcome, welcome. Hi. Right, there we go. So, there's a track for drum intro in here. So I'm going to add a new a new... Come on, brain. You can do this. A new track. There we go. Make sure that lines up properly. Questions off topic. Been looking for a good rectifier plugin. What would I recommend? Eesh. Rectifiers are famously some of the most difficult amps to emulate because they do so many things that are non-linear and just not like guitar amps should behave. Get back to you on that one. I've still not heard a really good convincing rectifier sim of any kind. Just like I've heard lots of good convincing amp sims, but rectifiers particularly not so much because they're a difficult one. They Mesa actually designed the PCBs in such a way that a lot of the circuitry was on either side of the PCB, and the electricity flow from one side would actually affect on purpose the electricity flow on the other side. So really hard stuff to model in real time. So yeah, if you want fizzy, you can get fizzy. Fizzy's out there. But if you actually want accurate, I don't know. I'll have to leave that to somebody else to suggest, because yeah, that's a tough one. Make sure the hats are right. Ride overhead. They should be further down. And the rooms should be further down too. There we go. I didn't ask you to carry all the automation data over. That's really annoying. There we go. Okay, so let's grab all of these, turn them down by the look of things, hopefully not by much, and see what we get at 185. Come on. Interesting. Hissing. Right, well, this session tonight might end up being... There we go. I'm just using shift and up and down like that. Not even fractal rectifiers. I know that Cliff from Fractal is a Mesa nut, and actually he's got probably the closest, if I'm being brutally honest. And I'm absolutely not anti-modeler. I think that Cliff from Fractal does a great job. These look like they've been edited. Ooh. That one's not been edited, or at least not hard enough. But that's okay. That's all right. I can still hear a lot of background sound. Trying to get Metallica's load tone. No, they used old 2-channel rectos, because so did everybody at that time. The Megajoule with Brainworks. Yeah, I mean, you need EMGs, you need a good tube screamer. You probably need a really good gate, and then you need the right amount of the right cabinet impulse, the right EQ. There's a lot more to it, unfortunately, to get a Metallica tone. Metallica are one of the most produced bands on the planet, for better or for worse. That's just the way it is with Metallica. I love the Metallica sound, but it is what it is. It's produced, it's polished, it's incredibly... That is what it is. What do I think of the isotope stuff? Oh, that had a lot of high end in there. Oh, wow. They're currently on sale. Wondering if the plugins are worth the price. If they're on sale, then especially Ozone is something that I use in a mastering context all the time. Be aware, if they're on sale, there will be no updates because Isotope are moving to a subscription model. Again, for better or for worse, that's what they're doing. So, yeah, just be warned. The version you get, like if it's Ozone 9, you're not getting a 9.1 or anything like that. It's just that will be the last that you get. But for what it does, it's great. Oh, that's some real bleed right there. Right. I'm going to have to do something clever with this, and I might have to go back and do it to the other one too. Right. This is where I go to view and change this to a spectrogram and add in a spectral edit. So I need the spectral edit to be the start to the end from there. Low frequency fade there, and just kind of fade it in a little bit. And where is it? Compression, gain, there we go. Just turn it off. Basically turn the gain down on that. Watch this magic. There we go. So if I just bring that into the very end of that tom hit there with a fade, hopefully that's got rid of that. There we go. So we still get the boo from the tom low end, which is this kind of light strip you can see behind my head. There we go. So I've done a spectral edit and removed the cymbal but left the tom low ring. Magic. This is a tiny, which I'll just live with. I might just push that in to see if I can deal with it. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that horrible has just gone, and it's still trying to make me all the spectral peaks, which I don't know if I'll need, but that'll definitely help me when we come to... Come on, I can't speak properly today. I'm going to change that back to spectral peaks. When we listen through, if there are any more of those massive bleed areas, do I EQ toms individually or on groups? Why not both? What I tend to do is I do a 3-step process. I go through each tom and listen for horrible frequencies and notch them out. Do I have videos on spectral editing? Not yet, I don't. It's not something I've done very much of. It is something I touch on in the Ultimate Reaper guide, but not on the public videos. But yeah, that was a pretty clever little move, wasn't it? I like that. But yeah, let's see how we go with fading these out. Yeah, there we go. Let's listen to this lot. So I can just... This one doesn't need any spectral stuff, I don't think. Because that's not loud enough to be offensive. That should blend in with the overhead mics. But yeah, spectral edits like that, very clever. I like it. Just move that way out. Click, 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 click. And see what we get. So yeah, as I was saying about toms, I get rid of horrible frequencies on each tom. Then I tend to sweeten them as a group. And then I go back if there's anything standing out on a particular tom and then fix any problems that have arisen from me sweetening the top end or bringing out some low end as a group. Now this one should be an easier edit, I think, because even though that tom 14's got a lot of crash, there are other toms going on which kind of mask it. So I don't have that problem really. I can hide behind the other toms. Let's try this now. That should, in context, and let's just play that back in context. Yeah, they're really good fills. It's just that there's loads and loads of bleeding cymbal, and the amount of because I'm kind of not cheating, but because I'm doing this as an album mix, I've already decided, unless there's any major difference on the drums from song to song, I've decided on the EQ settings, etc. by and large, which is what you tended to do in the traditional analog days anyway, is you would find the sounds at the start of the recording process, and you'd then just track the rest of the album without touching the board. I mean, unless you had to, unless there was a good reason for it. Okay, here we go. Let's just solo these. Oh, there's another one. That needs a spectral edit because I want that to go dumph. Last thing, I have no problem whatsoever with someone having a kit with lots of bits. It just means I have to be prepared to put the work in. So I have to fade that in so it doesn't just cut and then gain off. Let's try that, because you can see that big yellow region, that was the symbol that looked like that, and now it's gone. On these two, that's the dum. That's the click click. Here we go. Have I tried the virtual mix rack drum gate? I have, and I like it, but this sounds like a job for doing it manually, because the debleeder that Slate has is really good when it's really good, but when it's not good, it takes a lot of the life out, and I want, especially with this being metal, I want to keep all the high end on the hits, all of it. So it might be that I just have that the Flintstones I don't need. Let's just get rid of that. There we go. That's better. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm editing these a lot, but editing in the sense of removing what we don't want. And even though it takes the time doing this manually, it's worth it. But yeah, it's funny, on some songs or some projects, you'll see me not spending nearly this amount of time on the editing. And that brings up the question, well, when do you know when something needs editing or not? And for me, it just is a case of listen through. Does anything stand out that sounds like it's unpleasant to you? It shouldn't be there. It's causing you grief. And if it's not, there's no need then to go through and be this surgical, because quite often I find that on certain kits, on certain genres, that a lot of the bleed on the mics is the key to it sounding organic and sounding lively. On other genres or other songs or the kits, it can be the difference between sounding acceptable and sounding horrible. There we go. Absolutely don't need any of that. Nope, don't need that. Do. Come on, play. Doof. That's fine. And that all sounds fine as well. So let's just get this up to... Oh, such bleed. Was that mic on Tom 14 upside down? Because, funny story, I've actually done that. In my younger days, when I genuinely did not know what I was doing at all, I looked at my very first Sennheiser MD421. If you don't know what that is, give it a quick Google so you know what it looks like. And to me, it looked like, because there's a band across kind of the top of it if you hold it, it looked like the sound came in through the sides. So I pointed it downwards at a tom so that the side of it was pointing perfectly at kind of the tom head. Little did I know that it's an end fire microphone like an SM57, so the sound goes in the end. And so what I'd actually done is pointed the microphone, if this is the tom, up at the drummer's head. Sounded horrible. But here's the thing, it didn't sound horrible until the drummer started playing the whole kit, which at that point I didn't know what I was listening for. It sounded fine in isolation. And then, yeah, that's the thing. It sounded fine in isolation, but then when I played it back later, when I came to mix it, there was so much more of everything else on there than there was actual tom. They were largely useless microphones. And also then, because we were 18 and I didn't know how to tune drums either, they sounded terrible in the overheads too. Which meant that we were in this like $1 million studio because it was what the university had paid for, and it sounded awful. There we go. Ooh, big power fill. Guessing that's end of the song-ish? No, not quite. But it's the big moment. Let's see what happens when I can see white noise with these big dark things. Hooray for spectral peaks. Where it goes white, I'm pretty sure that last one is a do-do-do. Yep, I could see that was a cymbal crash because it was black. So let's see how this sounds. Like this. Do 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 do. Now most of you'll be far too young to get that reference, including me. Technically, that song "Black Night" by Deep Purple is from a long time ago. But yeah, at the time it had the iconic intro of digga 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 digga. Right, that's I don't want to. This is another one that needs spectral edits because I don't want to remove the like when you see a live sound guy hanging SM57 in front of a guitar cab pointing at the floor. Actually, a lot of the time I'll defend them on that one, because that's just a 90-degree off axis. As long as it's in the right place, sometimes that's the right thing to do. If you've got guitarists on stage who are young and have their treble knob at maximum because they think that's how metal should sound, you can actually fix a lot of problems by doing that, because it naturally dulls off the tone quite a lot, which means that you're not having to have your EQ on the desk at -90 and add in a second spectral edit. So yeah, don't be so quick to judge. If it's a sound guy who really doesn't know what he's doing, sure, but quite often there's a reason behind it. Not into the razor edits. Someone asked me about that before, Marty. I've been so crazy busy. That's gone from diggy now to diggy. I've been so crazy busy, I have not even had time to look at it. Apparently it's a thing, and apparently it's cool. I'll hopefully get around to looking at that next week. Marty, were you here? Yeah, it's pretty rare to see me spectral edit. That is true. But these toms, they ring nicely, but the cymbal bleed is crazy. So then how should metal sound? Well, metal guitars do tend to have quite a mean top end, but there's a limit where if you go beyond that limit, it's just painful and is actually helping no one. And that's usually the point, especially with the younger guitarists, where they haven't found that sweet spot yet. Yeah. So, yeah, the best way to get a really good metal guitar sound is to dial in the amp to how you would like to hear it whilst you are stood with your head right in front of that cabinet. Because the first thing you will say when your head is right in front of that cabinet is, God, that's loud. So you'll turn it down so your power amp will breathe a little more and give you a tighter, meaner tone. And secondly, you'll go, God, that's bright. And you'll turn your treble down a bit. And to combat that, you'll probably play more aggressively and play meaner, and you end up with this really nice, angry, balanced sound that still has plenty of top end, but isn't making your ears bleed. There we go. That sounds a little weird with a little bit of a Flintstonesy thing going on there, but that's fine. And then we'll cut these. This is also going through Boslab's Transgressor after all the processing here. So a lot of the high end is coming out because of the way that this I'm trying to express what I'm doing whilst I'm autopilot editing. Yeah, I want to keep character in this, and there is no sample replacement on the toms in this track at all, but because of that, yeah, treble down, presence up works most of the time. No, treble down, presence down. Honestly, people make their guitar amps far too bright live. You'll find the odd guitarist who knows what they're doing in the younger crowd, but it's rare. That's got a horrible key on it. Are those drums pre-recorded loops? Oh no, absolutely not. This is a full real drum performance. In metal, we don't use loops, my friend. Oh, what was that? Right, that one needs a spectral edit right there. Spectral edit, because that's all just noise. spectral edit to there with a fade in. Make sure the bottom, that's something I wasn't doing with some of these. That's why it wasn't carrying the ring on. There we go. I have to make sure to bring the, actually, if I change the frequency log, there we go. If I change the frequency log, we can see the rumble of the toms brought up a lot more. So I've changed the logarithmic values here so we can see the lower frequencies more. How do you know what you're doing as a young guitarist? Honestly, you don't. You just get experience and watch other guitarists and listen and learn, which takes time. The loops are lame. I would use total respect from you. Lose total respect from you. Why? I'm a mix engineer. I'm mixing what I've been sent. This is not my music. I am mixing professionally here. Whatever I get sent is what I mix. And as that goes, whatever I am sent is the artist's intent. Add a spectral edit. And as a result, if they want to use that kind of thing, I'm not going to stop them. There we go. Much cleaner. There we go. So that, I think that's supposed to have a fade on it. Yeah. And also let's add another spectral edit here. Where did that go? So I need that to come up, and there we go. That's gone. There we go. There we go. Nice, clean way of removing cymbal bleed. And we're just going to check through all these edits now. Oh, and have all four cymbals going, all four toms. They sound like cymbals when the bleed happens. That's quiet enough that I don't care. Moving on. Yep, also quiet enough that I'm not bothered. Oh. There we go. So that's still allowed to ring. Let's just let that fade in a bit more. There we go. DAWs confuse me. Any tips on how to use them without losing my mind? Unfortunately, not really. Just do it more. That's all I can really say. These are incredibly powerful tools that can do literally anything you want them to do. On the downside to that, there's a lot of information being thrown at you. It's like learning how to drive. It's all bewildering and terrifying, and then one day you've done it enough that it's just kind of okay then. Reminds you of the original Countdown to Extinction tom sound. Funnily enough, one of my favourite albums. I had that on in the car, the original mix earlier this week. And yeah, it sounded just as good as it always did. Okay, so there's some stuff that I need to work on here. Is this just one hit? Yeah, so this needs a spectral edit. Where is it? From about there with a fade that doesn't affect the low end. Come on, up you go. There we go. And brings the whole thing down. A little bit of a fade. Maybe take that a little further out. Let's just see which one of those is the problem, really. That one's not too bad. It's a bit messy, but I can live with it. That should be quiet enough that we get away with it. Let's move on. Listen to these crazy fills. Right, that one could do with an edit because it's got tons of snare on it. It's snare bleed, actually. Come on, edit. There we go. And because in this case, it's actually a snare rather than a cymbal I want to get rid of. There we go. Sounds a little rough on its own, but in the edit, that'll make sense. Do, 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 do. That's the Black Knight fill. Okay, so that's the one that needs its edits. The floor bringing up to let the ring through. That's it. There we go. There we go. Again, a little bit weird in isolation. Close enough. What was that? Bit of a click in there. Hopefully that's not a problem. All right. Let's unsolo all this and play it from the top, or at least from right here. Huh. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, the cleaning up of everything really helps, because those like I said, those are real toms as well. This is all it's took me a while to do this, but it's for the greater good, because suddenly these fills. I don't know whether it's an edit, but the ring on that tom actually stops there, so it's not like there's anything for me to stop that. Oh yes. Cool. I've taken the kick room trigger down a little bit. But then once the guitars come back, it's probably going to need to come back up there. But I'll just keep that in mind. £200. 2 inputs. If 2 inputs is what you need, Rob, I would see if you can find the Audion ID14 Mark II for $200. If you can get it around that price point, it is mwah. The Evo is also great, but the ID4, if you need less channels, is higher quality. I mean, we're talking the difference between 9 out of 10 and 10 out of 10 here. We're talking small differences, but if you don't need 4 channels, but you want the best, yeah. Just recap what I did there. Yeah, so I manually trimmed all the toms. Some of them had some hideous cymbal bleed, so I used Reaper's spectral edit feature to add in some spectral edits where there were cymbals, so I could let the low end of a tom ring out, but at the same time kill the top end there. I know that people can do that with like multi-band gates and things, but I wanted to do as much of that manually as possible, because that gives me the power to let things sustain in certain ways, let things die in certain ways. And then I'm not relying on plugins. I don't mind relying on plugins, but especially with real drums, I much prefer to do stuff with toms, especially manually. So I can unzoom on all the wave files now. Right, the trigger's back to being quieter on this track, so I'm going to turn that up. Right, there's little bits like that where the trigger goes a little soft, so I am going to push them to make sure it's consistent. Oh dear, apparently Jesus is coming. Everybody hide, look busy. Oh, we've got a rapture nutcase in the chat, have we? Wait. That guy can be blocked. It's always fun when you get a nutcase. Hello, everybody. I mean, if you believe in religious stuff, fine, cool. This is audio stuff, but if you're gonna start using the word rapture, that usually means you've gone off the deep end. So let's play this through, listen to make sure the triggers are consistent. Snare with and without samples. Sure. So here's the snare without the room sample. There we go, yeah, sounding good. And cool, John just sent me a photo, Mr. Brown. Architect, yeah, thank you. What's my opinion on Moto interfaces? They're okay. I've not used one in a long time because for a very long time, the Moto were very Mac or nothing. Which meant that I really couldn't use them because I've not been a Mac user for over a decade, not my thing. And as a result, I was kind of left out in the cold, so I just went with other manufacturers. Then I found people like Audient who are lovely people and make great gear. So there you go. Yeah, so that's what I was saying about earlier with the really high-tuned brass snare. That's the snare on its own with no samples, and the sample that I'm adding in is what I call the snare room, which is an old Andy Wallace trick, which sounds like this. Which is the kind of thing that, like I was saying, that's impossible to get without a sample, is that ridiculous tuning in a big kind of room type thing. And instead of trying really, really hard to get a consistent signal to a reverb, why not have perfect samples pre-reverbed that can be made consistent even when the main snare isn't? So them two together sounds like this. There we go. I've also got a track called Snare Weight, which is this ridiculous thing, which I'm not using on the faster tracks, which is... That's a Billy Decker thing. And on the slower song that we did before Everything, it just added a certain weight to the snare that made it feel better on a slower song. But on a song like this, that would probably just sound muddy and get in the way. So it's muted for special occasions, as and when we need it, if we need it at all. So yeah, I'm just looking through now and seeing how the triggers, the actual like physical trigger that was on the kick, seems louder and quieter in different places. So I'm just making that more consistent, so that, because it's ironic, I'm using it to trigger my trigger. I wasn't personally a big fan of the trigger sounds that were recorded on the day, but the fact that we have them and that they're incredibly clean is great, because that means that my life is made that much easier. Because I'm not... do I have demo videos of before and after? Before and after what? This is what the live mixing sessions are for, so that I don't have to do too many produced videos. I've been sickeningly busy recently. Because, like I was saying, I am a professional mix engineer. This is what I do. So when you're not seeing me on camera, I'm always busy. I wish I had time to do more YouTube videos, but right now, I'm so busy. It's crackers. So let's listen from the top. Oh boy, that needs some EQ on it. I can see exactly what he's going for here. So this needs this is a free add-on for Reaper called REEQ Req. There we go. There we go. That's probably enough. But let's try it. Tick, 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 tick. Yeah, so that's way too loud. That's fine. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. Now let's start to pull in some more tracks. I've got bass and the bass DI, which are backwards, but that's not a problem as long as I make sure I line the starts of them up. I'm guessing there's some sort of epic intro on this song from this long gap here. There's bass DI and then there's bass. Not sure what the difference is. Let me open my mix. Yes, so that's right. On each of these songs, I've thrown out the amped bass tone completely and just gone with a whole new amp setup. Let's have a look at the compressor on this. Yeah, that's brutal. Love it. Okay, now for the real test. So I'm going to pull the guitars in. There's not going to be any reamping today because I don't actually have my reamp box with me because I'm almost done filming the Celestian video, but everything's set up at the studio. Tomorrow's the last day of filming for that, which means that after tomorrow I'll be able to bring all that back and do reamps, and I'll also be able to bring back my modified Marshall, which is in the repair shop right now, and I'm picking it up in the morning. Very excited. But yeah, let's try this. Whoa, too much. Yeah, that's not sounding bad. I think I'm quite sure actually. I'm going to reamp those. It sounds good, but look at the amount of EQ work I've had to do to make that work. There's so many mid peaks in there, which probably on their own sound great, but once you start saturating it, it just blows your head off. But I can very much see what they've gone for here. So I might use the Mark 15150 for this, with the Earthquaker plumes in front of it when we get round to that, which will be the next session, which hopefully will be much sooner, hopefully, than it was last time. But yeah, hey, hello Mitch, hello everybody. Sounds like different IR choices or different amp choices for different sides. I do like that, but there's just something so pokey in the mids and not the low mids, like these spikes here that they're trying to desperately fix just how pokey this is. Trying to undo that is a bit like, grr. So I'm guessing that the guitars had quite a bit of what's the word? Quite a bit of poke on the either the preset or the amp choice. Sounds a bit like the Neural Granifier, which is an amp that I very much like. Never actually bought it. I've still got the demo, but seeing as though I've got some of these great amps, I just kind of use what I have, like Old Faithful down there. But yeah, that 5150, I think with the plumes in front of it, will get us a fantastic tone. Now, I do have the DIs for these, which I'm going to pull in and mute because, like I say, today I don't have the equipment with me to do that, because otherwise trying to run 100 and odd watt valve amp without a load is asking for trouble. But yeah, even if the 5150 doesn't work, I will have a gain modified 1978 Marshall JMP, which with a boost in front of it, like I've got the Mosky clone, that in front of the Marshall, which is essentially the actual 14 nameless amp. They're not the same, but they're kind of similar. When I've got an extra gain cascaded real early or late 80s Marshall. Yeah, you can get that tone very quickly. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. It's going to be epic. But yeah, we'll experiment. We'll do a bit of playing around. Why does the guitar DI have missing bits? Yeah, so up till now, I've only used the JMP on the Celestian video for the Jack Gardner stuff, where the preamp volume was on like 3 and the gain mod just wasn't on because he plays more of a plexi kind of style. I wasn't really confident on pushing that amp any harder than that, but now it's been to Roland Lumbier, man from the Amp Clinic in Manchester, who is the guy who looks after lots of big name people's amps. He knows them inside and out and has fixed some of the worrying problems that thing has had since I bought it. But because of the whole COVID situation, I've not had a chance to get anything to him in the meantime. Is there a clean guitar in this one? No, there is not. Which means I'm just going to delete that. And I'm actually going to bump these two DIs up into there so that I've got a clearer idea. If you're watching, guys in SkyeAsylum, could do with whatever this guitar is here, wherever that's gone. I mean, I'm going to drop in more tracks. There's entirely a lot of, there's a possibility that they're still here. In fact, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the verse guitar group 2, and I'm just going to duplicate this twice. Twice because there are 2 sets extra guitars that I can see in my folder that have to come in. So here's the harmony guitars coming at you like a shark with knees. Separate tracks, yes. Right, okay. Oh no, so the harmony guitars, I'm guessing are actually harmonies. Let's just solo just this one and listen here. Okay, that's put them in the wrong order, but that's okay. And wow, that tone is bright. So the DIs are now on the right tracks. Oh, so bright. and that's supposed to go along with these. Let's just see if these are different takes. Stop. I'm guessing that these are... I mean, the guitar parts are fine. The guitar parts are great. The amp tones need some work, but that's, you know, these were recorded, what, over a year ago? That's fine. You learn as you go, and that's what I'm here for. I can hear, I think these are the exact same guitar part that's been thrown through 2 different amp sims, and the reason I think that is the case is that I can hear the clean DI now, because this amp, if this is a sim, and this amp sim here have a lot in common. They're actually cancelling out at a lot of places, and what I'm starting to hear coming through is the original guitar. Even though it's all amp sims, I'm starting to hear the kind of the wood of the tone come through there. But yeah, so the guitars are actually there. That's cool. So where it says harmony guitars, they're actually just a different part. And then there's lead guitars which go on their own tracks over here. Come on. So that's put these ones in the right order, so that's fine. This looks like a much more chuggy sound, and I can tell that because I can see these big red chugs. There's the chugs. They sound like they're going to be fine. They've got a very Devin Townsend-y type thing. Okay, so these are those are placeholder guitars. I think I'm keeping the leads, but the rhythm guitars I need to do something with tonally. But that's fine. That's note to future self. Piano. Right, so I've got a stereo piano coming in here. What processing have I got? Right, so there's nothing on the synth group apart from track spacer. And where's track spacer coming? Where's track spacer getting sends from? The vocals. Okay, so we're going to keep that because that's very important on synth stuff, I find. So we've got strings, which if I remember rightly, there's an SWS extension that helps me because I get a little bit annoyed with mono files of everything if it should be stereo, because then you've got to go in, you've got to hard pan it, you've got to have child stuff, or just re-render it, which is fine. It's just a bit like, you know. Tish dash. Yeah. Hark, do I hear a Devon Townsend? That's so Devon. I mean, let's just trim the silence out of these, just to make it easier to look at. Process silence. There we go. That's much easier to look at now, isn't it, everybody? Let's start building this up. So we've got a piano. I've got 2 risers to get in there. Comps. Item processing. There's, if I remember rightly, there's implode and explode on tracks somewhere, but I'm really starting to my brain isn't quite working right because I've been doing all these crazy edits for the Celestian video. It's slightly kind of deep fried my mind. Implode items across tracks into items on one track? No, because that's not hard panned it. I know there's a way of doing it, but I'll come back to it. Is there a low synth? No, there are bass drops. There's vocalize, bento winds. There's some real fancy stuff going on here. Let's just make sure I can see what everybody's seeing. David on Twitch. Hello. No, I'm probably going to be on for another hour, although my brain is starting to fade, so my speed is starting to not be, as it were. It's because I don't have a drink in my hand. That would be a terrible curse to have. You know, like you know, musicians who can't go on without a drink. Ignore tempo suggested by media. This is not 36 BPM. But thanks for trying to help there. There we go. Yeah, good work, Reaper. Just no. There we go. So there's our piano. Piano, piano. That seems complicated. Well, everything's kind of complicated. Let's call this riser and just commandeer that and just have 4 tracks under that. It's behaving rather slowly at the moment. But if I bring these in to bar 5, separate tracks. I regret buying the Reaper Guide when it was on sale. It'll be on sale again, I'm sure of it. Don't worry about that. Just keep your eyes peeled. However much it costs right now, maybe save up half of that and keep it to one side. And I'm not keeping something from you that I don't know. I genuinely don't know when there would be another sale, but my gut tells me there will be one. Okay, so these risers look like I'll be able to mix them in a very similar way. So I'm just going to compact these down to 2 tracks, just because I can. New to mixing, started a month ago. Any tips? Do it, and do it lots. I don't know what you're kind of thinking that I'm going to tell you, but find who your favourite songs are made by, find who produced them, listen to other stuff by them, get a feel for how that mixing engineer works by listening for common threads between different tracks that they've done. Then go from there and start learning to achieve the sounds that your favourite mix engineers have made. Then at least you're working towards a goal rather than just get good. Sweet, the compressor on this helped. Probably want to shave all the top end off this to a point. That might be too far. Let's check it out. There we go. We don't want things like this riser to have tons more high end than everything else in the track because it will stick out like a sore thumb. So by softening the top end, it's still got lots of top end, but comparatively to everything else, it lets the rest of the mix breathe. Sorry, what's Al asking there? Is there a threshold of processing applied to a particular track where it needs to be printed before more processing is applied? No, that's just like, is your computer not doing what you want it to do? And if it's not doing what you want it to do, if it's stuttering and then you need to start looking at freezing things. But that's why I've always pushed for having a more well-kitted out computer in terms of processing power, because I don't like freezing stuff ever. Quite often, because a mix is fluid, a mix changes. This is one reason why for a long time the old school analog engineers were able to boast that analog mixing desks were better, is that once an element changed on one channel, it would affect the way you would perceive the other channels. But they would very quickly, within an instant, be able to reach over to the EQ section, for instance, of that other channel and just go change, 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 change. Very, very quickly. Do I like donuts? I mean, don't do the please answer thing, because that's desperate. Nobody likes desperate. But I mean, I guess. Don't mind a donut. Right, I thought something was a little weird here. These, because I've copied this riser from something else, there's this stereo image filter, which I probably don't need. And there's some weird EQ stuff, which again, I probably don't need. I'll turn these off. Soothe coming in and saving my hide on the risers here. Yeah, that's sounding pretty good. I'm probably going to need to come back to it for maximum impact, but that's fine. So we've got sub drops that are all going to go in. And again, I'm guessing here, but I'm going to make 2 new tracks that go... Do I play Minecraft? When would I have time to play Minecraft? No, I mix. I played Minecraft when I was like 20. I played Minecraft when it was Java only. Since then, I'm just busy. So, no, I do not play Minecraft. I occasionally have the odd Minecraft stream on in the background, but I can't even pay attention to that, so... Oh, so we've got doof, doof, doof going on. Yeah, so as I suspected, I can have these on the same channel and then automate as needed if they need more or less volume or certain frequencies. And from a mix perspective, I consider them to be on the same channel. Right. They're way too loud, so they're coming down in volume. Right. Sounds like this didn't need any drive on it, which is good. Let's take that down. Probably didn't need that either. Oh, have I only been raising one side? Oops. What plugins do I use as standard on my master fader when I begin a project? Nothing. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. I don't do top-down mixing, really. I know there are things on my master bus right now. Quite often, I will go to the Shadow Hills Class A and very, very lightly touch it. Quite often, I'll go for the Black Box Analog Design HG2, which I have actually been using the HG2 MS. I need to replace that. But it depends on the genre, it depends on the song, it depends on the tempo, it depends if it needs it. I feel out a project as I start, but I tend to mix without anything on the master bus. I find that it works better for me. But I do have things on here because we've already been through the full mix process for at least one song on this album. And now I'm kind of working backwards to try and match the other mixes to that. But yeah. Do I use a limiter on a master fader mix? No. See, I've got Flatline here by Submission Audio, but it's disabled. I only turn that on for when I'm submitting that to somebody to listen to. Right now, that's not on. I don't mix with the limiter on. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of it. Yeah. Have I tried the Alicia character VST yet? No, I haven't had a chance. let's try this with a bit of saturation on the low end and see if that really does the trick. Yes, welcome to the Discord. Anybody who's joining up, welcome. Yes. Do I plug bass guitar direct in or through a plugin? I never ever use just a direct bass signal because they sound horrible. If I use plugin, which one? Lots of them. It depends on the genre. It depends on the song. On this ultra brutal metal stuff, I have used the same track of DI. One is clean but using Unfiltered Audio's Bass Mint, which is giving me the serious low end, and the other is using Aurora DSP's Mammoth, which is giving me a big, heavy. What does Bass Mint do? It kind of takes the low end frequencies and kind of duplicates or saturates them in places where it's kind of semi-automated and does a lot of it kind of replicates ultra low end to give you a let's just turn off the Mammoth. There we go. Can you feel that bass? Here's without it. Sounds okay. Here's with it. It just kind of, it's almost magic. It brings out super low stuff. So if I mix that with the angry bass amp plugin from Mammoth, that becomes this big. And that sounds like way too much distortion, way too much low end. But for this genre, suddenly in the mix, here we go. Okay, I'm not going to spend all night answering one person's questions. I've got an actual mix to do. Also, this is going to be available video on demand as soon as we finish the stream here. It'll be back on the YouTube channel permanently, as will everything else. If you need more information, watch everything on our YouTube channel going back weeks, months, years. We've got a full library of this kind of stuff. Can work over low cut vocals. Ah, okay. I've not used Bass Mint on vocals. Interesting. I don't really intend to either, but that's a really cool application. That's really cool. Right, so we've not got to the vocals yet. We've got vocalese and vento winds. What processing is on this track called low synth? Let's just call this vocalese, because vocalese is when you go like, it's almost like scat, that's but can be used in any way. So I usually, when I make music, I tend to call tracks like this the R track because I'm terrible at naming things, but that's why I spend a lot of my time as a mix engineer and not really as an artist. I do what I do. Cool. There's very little on that, so I'm going to copy that vocalese track to make these vento winds, whatever that is. And don't forget to delete the other track out of there. There we go. Lovely. Ignore tempo, because that's just the file number on separate tracks. Yes, a little over a year ago I was playing in a band all over the country. Yeah, I mean closer to 2 years ago now, but yeah, I was doing 3-hour shows on a night and playing bass, singing vocals, but also being the kind of sound guy for the band, unsurprisingly. I mean, you know, that's gonna happen when you do this. Let's listen to what this sounds like on its own. What is this? Right, let's take out up to 14k. Yeah, just soften them off a little. Thing saying, you're amazed about how much distortion you can get away with on bass. It's not about getting away with it, it's about needing it, because the wall of distortion from the guitars masks everything else. It's a phenomenon called frequency masking. Frequency masking is the bane of our lives as mix engineers, but you have two choices with frequency masking. You can either find ways to carve spaces in particular elements of a mix so that others shine through, or you can make a particular frequency range in one instrument so much more dominant that it starts to cut through, which is what you have to do with bass, because even with a wall of guitars, if you start doing too much cutting to a wall of guitars to the wrong places, it starts to sound thin and weak and lifeless. So to get around that, you make things like the distortion on the bass really quite specific on the high mids and quite grindy and quite cutting, so that it finds its space. And usually because that's somewhere in the middle and the guitars are on the sides, again, generally, you find that things do quite easily then sit in their own spaces in a mix. It's hard to get info about home recording. Thanks for your help. I respectfully disagree. It's never been easier to find out everything about home recording. There's Produce Like a Pro, where they do lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. There's the Pro Tools Expert. There's Spectre Sound Studios, where Glenn Fricker talks about all sorts of stuff from scratch. There's resource after resource after resource after resource. It's all out there. You've just got to spend time with it and find out what's stopping you, and then learn how to ask the right questions. All the answers are out there. How often do I do this live? At the moment, roughly once a week, hoping to do more, but I've been snowed under with some other big jobs recently. So yeah, hopefully at least once a week. But yeah, I also do, we do a podcast every Thursday. And yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate it. I don't mind answering specific questions. That's part of why I'm doing this. So let's have a listen through what we have now, apart from knowing that the guitar tones are going to be changed because they're not quite right. Let's see what we got. Right, that needs to go down even further, that intro guitar, because the intro isn't hitting. It's not hitting me very hard, and the only way to get it to hit me harder is to have these intro bits not as loud, even though they hit hard, so that the volume has somewhere to go, so it goes boom, wow, and really hits me. Well, the other thing, which is a very fair comment which just came up in the chat there, is it so hard for a player to be an engineer? I just want to play and not turn knobs. I get it. I completely get it. But it depends what you want to do. Do you just want to play? Because again, being brutally honest, if you just want to play, stop trying to be an engineer. Just turn it off, go and play. And that's okay. But if you want to, quote unquote, make it in the industry, if you want people to hear you, if you want to get out there, if you want to be good enough, quote unquote, to be heard and all the rest of stuff, you have to be an engineer as part of it. If you are dedicated enough and passionate enough to do everything that there is to do with playing, you got to stick it out. You got to dive in. You got to go in head first. And it comes at the same time as putting those hours of practice in. Learning all this kind of stuff is just another feather in your cap, so to speak, where you put in the hours and hours and hours of practice, exactly like doing your scales, doing your arpeggios, doing your sweeps, all that kind of stuff to make you actually good. It takes an insane amount of effort, if I'm being completely honest. I do this all day, every day, and have done since I was about 14 years old, so over 20 years at this point. And without a word of a lie, at no point in the last 20 years have I gone for more than about a week at any given time without either playing or mixing. And that's in 20 years. And generally it's stuff that I do every day, but humans have to have days off. But yeah, it's something. If you want to get this good, you put in the 10,000 hours, and the information is all out there. You've just got to learn enough to know what questions you should be asking. That's the key. Yeah. I want to record my stuff. That is all. Well, you can do that with a 4-track cassette deck. Honestly, you can do that with a 4-track cassette deck. If you want it to sound good and be competitive with everyone else, welcome to the grind. Now, let's have a listen to this all the way through. My brain is absolutely fried. But we've got a fair bit of progress done. We've checked the other mixes. We've got a good way through this. I'm thinking Friday is when we're going to pick this up, add the vocals in, reamp the guitars so they sound good, and make it all sound as it should be. But here we go. Let's have a listen. City. Nice. It's alright, Matty. I can see everything in chat. It's no problem. Cool. Right, those last two kicks, I'm going to bring them up and hit them harder. And also, there was that section. Let's just listen to the... There's too much sub going on in the kick. This always happens with double bass when it's that fast. And again, let's just listen. Right, so what I can do, this is transgressor. This is splitting the kicks up into the initial hit and the woomph afterwards. So what I can do is I could probably automate the sustain so that after the click, the woomph to be less on that section, which should clear everything right up. So if it'll let me. No, wrong channel. There we go. Trim on the kick. Where's transgressor? Yep, so there's sustain level. That's what I want. So I've just brought the sustain level up as a lane, as an automation lane. So for this section, I'm just make sure snap is off so I can do it specifically in between these hits and make sure it comes back to normal for any single hits that happen after and those two hits. So I'm just adding points at the moment. Now let's bring this down. So I've taken out, like it says, around 6 dB of that kind of thing. So let's see how that works. Yeah, so let's see if that's cleared it up. Yes and no, because that volume drop has also made a literal volume drop. So I'm going to have to add another thing for the transient level and kind of do a mirror image here. So the transient level is the volume of the actual click on the hit. So let's go the opposite way with these and make it opposite day. Does slate trigger vary the volume of the sample based on the triggered hit? It can do. It is a multi-level, multi-dynamic, multi-velocity triggering system. You can set it so that it's kind of a straight line, which actually, because SkyeAsylum have given me a really consistent trigger file, then that means that I've got something consistent to work with. But if I want dynamics like on a snare, it can take them. But there's also the velocity curve thing, which I'll show you. There's view curves. See, this is the velocity curve on each sample. If I flatten that, or like take the dynamics to just 0, that becomes a machine gun. So no matter what you hit, if it gets through the trigger, it's rat-a-tat-tat. But yeah, otherwise it is full dynamics. So hopefully now I've turned up the transient as I've turned up the sustain, so we get more click. So here we go. Awesome. I don't think that needs any editing there because that's there's enough time in between those hits for the sustain and the attack to give us a very defined like that. Although that does sound a little bit weird on the trigger of this. Ah, that'll be why. Ah, so it was also kind of double triggering the room sample. Right, got you. That's much better. That's the room sample. That's a separate copy of trigger that just does the room sound on the kick drum, which makes it sound a lot bigger in the mix. But before it wasn't quite right. Okay, David asks, are these guitars mic'd or VST? I am led to believe these are all VST, and they sound quite good for VST, but there is still something about them that isn't working, but I'm going to come back to these in the next session when I've got all my reamp gear back together and run them through probably the 5150, if not the Road King. Yeah. Yeah, no, Marty's completely right. Pretty soon we'll be live streaming recording bands from our studio in 4K, multiple cameras. And actually, the way that it will work is it will cost extra for the bands if they don't want it broadcast. All neural and a little bit Helix native. Yeah, it sounds good. It's just in a mixed context. It's not quite there. That's all. But yeah, they will absolutely. And I'll have the Marshall JMP as of tomorrow. Fixed and ready to go for the loud, high gain, scary stuff. So yeah, I'm thinking that as a day one mix, this is all right. Yeah, I've just listened on 3 different virtual systems there. The guitars sound okay, but there's frequency bands that are sticking out on different speakers that make it not quite right. Yes, and yeah, no, Marty wasn't joking about the live streaming from the studio in 4K. We've had gigabit internet installed. We've got multiple cameras all wired up remotely around the studio. This was all a project that was supposed to go live a lot sooner than it did, but COVID, was taking the wind out of the sails somewhat. But yeah, in the future, we're looking forward to having bands tracking in the studio whilst broadcasting live. That's the idea, very much so. And so we'll be able to take your questions at the same time as the band being there. So yeah, it's going to be pretty epic, but it's we've been refining and changing things and making sure that things work. There's a GoPro permanently hooked up as a feed in the vocal booth with a wide angle shot so you can see the singer. There's a separate camera in the live room. There's a separate 2 cameras in the control room so you can see me and you can see the band. But yeah, no, it's a real idea. Yeah. But I think for this session, this is where I'm going to leave it. Even though I know I've got another song to do, we've been going at it 2 hours and a bit, and my brain is starting to fry. So next time I'll see you all is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. is the podcast, by which time I will have all my reamping gear back here, and hopefully my brain will be in a better peace. Which reminds me, I've not actually uploaded last week's podcast to iTunes yet, which I'm probably going to do now. So yeah, there's always stuff to do. So yeah, there's lots to work on. Like I said, there's the 5150 and the Mesa in the background. They're going to be hooked back up in a more permanent solution. If you could see this room, you'd see how it looks like absolute hell. But that's just because I've just moved house, for anyone who wasn't aware. So this is my new setup. This is my new desk. This is all a nightmare. But it's coming through. It's working fine. That's the other reason it's been a little slow around here. So yeah, that's coming coming together quite nicely, the song Kingdom. And then we'll get the vocals in there. We'll get that worked out. And then I've got another song to already work on. What's that called? To Live is to Die, which sounds incredibly epic. So yes, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll hope to see you in part 6 of this, which, all being well, is going to be Friday night. So I'll see you all on Friday night. I'm going to have a beer in my hand so we can chill out and blast some sounds through a 5150. It'll be the first time in a little while, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye!
Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hop Hole Studios. See you there.